So today I'm just going to talk about a couple things that really stuck with me during our class discussions and readings of the book. So the two main things I really want to point out are number one, the importance of serving in your job as it relates to what you do and how you serve people. The second one is doing good and small things well. So although you may not be doing like big mission work for the Lord or anyway, the little things do matter. So for the first thing, I'm going to talk about serving. One really cool thing that I think we talked about was the aspect of the coal miners and how they worked and how that um, brought them income and also job security with what they had to do. But really cool thing I think that's important is as we get older, we tend to take for granted that we get to do what we love for a job. I got the opportunity to go to Thailand 2 summers ago, and I saw this huge heap of trash, and people worked there, and that's how they made their living, and that's how they provided for their families. So in this way, people that work in the dump aren't only serving their families, but they're also serving themselves, and they're just trying to find a way to live. And I think it's a huge blessing, as you said earlier in class, that we have the opportunity to choose and struggle with what we want to do because there's so many things that we could do. So not only are people on the low economic end, they're serving their families by providing food, but I think it's also important that as people in America, we try to serve people in our careers as well. So thinking about how can I serve my coworkers if I'm doing something business related, or how can I serve the community if I'm doing something that's community related. So how do I serve the people that I work with? And I think that's a huge question that we can sometimes go over in a way, but we're so focused on our work that we forget about why we're there. And I think a huge part of that is to serve, because Jesus says he alone, he came to serve, and he became the greatest servant of all. So that's my first thing about service. My second thing, is I'm going to read a little passage from the book, from Dorothy Days, and she is quoting Therese, the nun that she wrote about. And so sometimes in this big thing of life, we can be caught up in like the jumble of, am I doing something big? Am I doing something small? And not really thinking that we contribute a lot. So I really like her acts of service, and she says, "To belittle is not to attribute ourselves the virtues we practice, nor to believe ourselves capable of practicing virtue at all. It is rather to recognize the fact that God puts treasures of virtue into the hands of his little children to make use of them in time of need, but they remain always treasures of the good God. Finally, to belittle means that we must never be discouraged over our faults, for our children often fall, but they are too small to harm themselves very much." So this all comes back to the fact that we may be doing something small, but God is doing a much bigger work through us. And just the fact that she says little children don't hurt themselves when they fall, and nothing that we could mess up is going to be too bad that God can't fix if we feel like we messed up in our work. And I think that's also important to recognize that we're all a part of his master plan if we are doing the job that we feel that we're called to do. So that's kind of my synopsis. So the first thing is always try to serve people that you're working with or serve the community in your job. And the second thing would be to recognize that even though you might be doing something that you think is small, God is using you in a work that is redemptive through your work, and in that your work is sacred no matter what you do. Thanks.